and they're peanut rabbits. And probably there is no correlation if we were able to do that research. And yet, we come in our minds again automatically, not necessarily consciously, to believe that there's a relationship between the two. How does this play a role in prejudice and stereotypes? I mean, maybe some of us have tall women or rabbit owner stereotypes. But of course, that was not what the researchers were trying to explain. They were interested in negative racial stereotypes. And what one researcher in this tradition argued is, at least at the time that they were developing this model, that, let's say, for a Caucasian person in the United States at the time, it might be somewhat distinctive, it might be unusual for them to encounter a person of a different race in their everyday lives, given how segregated they were at the time. And they also argue that even though we might feel like unpleasant things happen to us often, in fact, as we go about our lives, it's pretty unusual that something unpleasant will happen. They don't have high base rates. They're pretty distinctive. And so basically the argument is that because encountering somebody, let's say somebody who's African American for a Caucasian person, encountering somebody of a different racial background and having something bad happen are both distinctive and both unusual events, we're going to come to see a relationship between those two unusual events, even though there's not one. So we'll come to see some shared mechanism between the person of a different racial background and the event that's negative, and come to sort of put together the negative event and the person from a different background and believe that they're somehow related. And also develop negative beliefs about people of that other background. So for example, this could explain why Caucasian individuals would have negative stereotypes about African Americans if every time they encounter an African American person, they attach that in their minds to some negative thing that happened to them around the same time. Then they're going to develop some beliefs about how African Americans relate to these negative things happening, even though there's no direct evidence for that, and then lead them to develop stereotypes about African Americans. It seems, in a way, sort of implausible. I mean, on the one hand, it seems like, okay, that's a reasonable argument. When you think about it through, you think, well, how could that really just, without any actual evidence, lead people to develop stereotypes? So I want to tell you about what's really sort of the most famous study in this literature that shows that even though this may seem far-fetched, and even though it may seem that we should have these conscious thought processes that should guard against this sort of thing happening, in fact, what this evidence will show is that it is possible that we can develop stereotypes just based on shared distinctiveness. We can come to imagine a relationship between two unusual negative things, even when one doesn't exist. So the way that you show this empirically is you have to do sort of carefully designed studies. So this is going to be one of those cases where it's really important that you understand the experimental design, because if you don't, the findings are not going to be that exciting and they won't be compelling to you. So it's really important that you get it. In this study, subjects are given statements to read, and they involve people from two different groups, Group A and Group B. And they're all statements like this. So here are two examples. Joe, a member of Group A, gave up his seat on the subway to an old lady. So isn't that nice? One person from Group A did this sort of nice thing. Another sample statement would be, Bob, a member of Group B, dropped litter in the subway station. Nasty, littering person from Group B. So you get information about people, some of whom are in Group A, and some of whom are in Group B. In each statement, one person, either from Group A or Group B, is doing something that's positive or negative. Not like enormously positive or enormously negative, but somewhat positive or somewhat negative. So that's the basic idea. The critical part here is how the statements were designed. And so let me show that to you here. So we have two groups, Group A and B, and we have desirable positive behaviors and undesirable negative behaviors. There are 39 total statements subject to read. The most important thing that you have to realize about this study for the results to make sense is when we look at the ratio of A to B across desirable and undesirable, what's really important that you notice is that both for desirable and undesirable behaviors, there are just twice as many in group A than there are in group B. So the ratio of desirable to undesirable behaviors is identical between group A and B. Group A is just as likely to do something positive as group B, and group B is just as likely to do something negative as group A. But group B has fewer people. So group B is smaller than group A. There's only 13 statements from group B, 26 from group A. So group B is smaller, but the way that the information is constructed, the ratio of what you know about group A and B is identical. Because there are twice as many people in group A as in group B, and group A has twice as many desirable and twice as many undesirable behaviors as group A and group B, there's logically no information here in terms of whether group A or group B is more positive or negative. The information is identical. That's the first thing that's really important to notice, that because of the fact that group A is twice as big as group B, and group A is assigned twice as many positive attributes as group B, and twice as many negative attributes as group B, this information is designed to genuinely have no information at all. There's nothing that would lead you to believe that one group should be more or less positive than the other. The other important thing is that just like group B is the distinctive group, they're the minority, negative or undesirable behaviors are also distinctive. They happen less frequently than the positive ones. So what the illusory correlation theory or shared distinctiveness theory would predict is that you would imagine a relationship between two distinctive factors, even though there's not any objective evidence supporting it. In this case, what's distinctive is being in group B and doing something negative. So if this theory is correct, then people will come to develop negative beliefs about group B, even though, and I cannot stress this enough, there is no objective evidence supporting group B being more or less negative than group A. So the objective reality is there is no difference between group A and B. To the extent that people develop negative beliefs about group B, that would support a shared distinctiveness theory. If people develop negative beliefs about group A, then we would need a whole other theory. Questions?
But the ratio is the same in how often the negative has bigger than the amount of
Right, so that's exactly the point. That objectively, based on the information, you have no information that would tell you whether group A or group B is more or less negative. So they're identical, so you have no information. But as we'll see, people can still answer questions about them. And what you'll see when I show you the results in a second is that even though your answer should be the same about the attributes of these people regardless of group membership based on the objective information, people make differential judgments about people in groups. So the first thing that the researchers asked subjects to do was to estimate the frequency to try to remember how often they heard about people in group A and B doing good and bad things. So this is what you see in